Many of you know that I'm into books. When I was seeking, I was into reading books. And now I'm no longer seeking. I still like books. I still like reading spiritual books. And I've got a love for a lot of traditions. I've been studying Vedanta for how long? Over 20 years. And Buddhism the same. Because I started young. I started when I was a child, reading the scriptures. In fact, the first kind of big spiritual text I came across was a book called Raja Yoga by Swami Vivekananda. And this was a series of lectures by Swami Vivekananda. And at the end of the book was a copy of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras in Sanskrit with English translation and a commentary. So this is one of the first books I read. So it's a very traditional type book. And it really got me hooked into spirituality. And prior to that, I'd read the Bible, bits of the Bible, most of the New Testament, and the Bhagavad Gita, which remains, I mean, the Bhagavad Gita and the Bible are two of my favorite texts. And my favorite texts change from time to time. So often, whatever I'm reading now is my favorite. And then a few months later, I might be reading something else, and that'll be my favorite. So I like a lot of the Vedanta texts. Some of Shankara's stuff's quite cool. So one of my favorites is Viveka Chudamani. Let me write that down, because Viveka Chudamani. I spelled that right. I've just put that in the comments. Some of you will be able to see that. So that's a good overview of the Vedanta path, and it's a text that was written probably about 1400 years ago and is attributed to Shankara. Some people think he didn't write it, some people think he did write it, but traditionally it's been one of the main texts of Advaita, or non-dual Vedanta. And it is a discussion between a seeker and a guru, and the guru leads the seeker all the way through the path. And there's a lot of repetition, there's a lot of beautiful poetry and beautiful metaphor, which this body-mind Tom really loves. So I'm in love with those kinds of teachings. It can be, sometimes they can be a bit difficult to decipher, but it depends on who you are. It depends what your heart resonates with. One of my favorite texts is Faith in Mind Sutra, which I recently blogged on tomdas.com. So if you do a search for Faith in Mind Sutra and Tom Das, that'll come up. You can have a read of that. It's just a few pages long. I like the Bodhidharma. You can read, again, you can find, I think there are like 3 or 4 sermons that are available in English that are attributed to Bodhidharma. Bodhidharma is the founder of Zen Buddhism. Faith in Mind Sutra is written by one of the Zen patriarchs. I think it's the 3rd Zen patriarch. I like the Tao Te Ching. Again, most of you have heard of that. Let me write it down in case you haven't. Tao Te Ching. There are several different translations you can look into. I've got a huge resonance with the teachings of Ramana Maharishi. And he's done a lovely text called Who Am I? Nanya in the Tamil. Who Am I in English. It's a very concise text. If you've explored these teachings for a long time, then it's a good summary. If you've never come across it before, again, it might be a bit difficult to understand, but with a bit of investigation, it's usually not too tough. And that's the text that Ramana used to recommend that people read when they attended his, when they came to his ashram where he stayed. And in some of the recorded dialogues and questions and answers, people would often ask me a question. And sometimes he'd respond by saying, read Who Am I first, and then see if you've got any more questions. So it's a good primer. A wonderful text that I've just rediscovered, I read it a few years ago, is one that's been written by a devotee of Ramana. I think his name's Lakshmana Sanama. So the only two people that I'm aware of that receive private lessons from Ramana Maharishi are this Lakshmana Sanama and Muruganar. And Lakshmana Sanama wrote a few different things about Ramana Maharishi. And one of them is called let me see if I can pronounce this right, because I've already seen it written down. I think it's the Paravidya Upanishad. I'm probably going to spell it wrong, but you can look it up. Paravidya. Oh. Vidya means knowledge, and in the spiritual sense, Vidya means the ultimate knowledge. So we're not talking about the mundane knowledge of the mind. We're talking about self-realization, just the being of who you are. It's not really knowledge, it's knowing. It's the knowingness. It's the beingness. It's that suchness. In Zen, they call it suchness. You can't really put it into words. You can't really put it into words, but it's just the essence of who we are in our experience. It's pretty ordinary in a way, and yet magical at the same time. So that's Vidya. Para, the word para before the word Vidya implies a greater, so great knowledge, or maybe beyond knowledge, something greater or beyond, so some sort of elevated knowledge. And then Upanishad refers to these texts, these wonderful holy texts, these ancient texts that teach freedom or moksha, liberation. And Lakshmana Sanama considered Ramana Maharishi to be as great as any of the other sages or rishis that wrote these Upanishads. And this teaching that he wrote really summarizes a lot of Bhagavan's teachings, lots of Ramana's teachings. So that's a really nice text. It's something I've discovered again recently. Again, it's available. You can find it on David Godman's website for free. So it's a wonderful blessing that David Godman's given us by sharing this for free online, and you can have a look at it. And again, it's if you're really into the Vedanta teachings, it's brilliant. I like a lot of the some of the Tibetan stuff, some of the Dzogchen stuff, some of the Mahamudra stuff. There's a wonderful book called Heart Advice by a Mahamudra master, which is beautiful. I like the Zen teachings of Huang Po. Oh, there's another guy I like, Bankei, Bankei, Bankei. He's a Japanese Zen master who lived a few hundred years ago, and he constantly talks about this thing he called the Unborn, and it's a really simple, beautiful teaching. There's probably loads of stuff I've forgotten because I've just read so much stuff over the years. But yeah, there's some things that come to mind right now. Oh yeah, I also love the Paly suitors, which are some of the earliest recorded sayings of the Buddha and recorded dialogues with the Buddha. They're really beautiful, and a lot of them are very different to the sort of organized Buddhist teachings that we hear and see being taught in the 20th and 21st century. When you actually read the Buddha's teachings, as recorded in these early texts, it's often quite different, and some of them are very direct. but very beautiful, and in my view, pointing to the same thing. Tony has put a link to Animalized Swami, which is he's written well, he's not written it, but again, David Godman's edited and published a series of books by Animalized Swami. Again, well worth reading. Not only has he got wonderful reminiscences of, is that the right word? He talks about these wonderful stories about his interactions with Bhagavan, with Ramana, and also distills the teaching and gives you a very, very crisp, simple to follow teaching that makes it very, very clear. So Animalized Swami, again, much gratitude to David Godman for making these teachings available.